Does a giant race still reside in the Solomon Islands? Researchers investigating the site have heard and retold many stories famous among the native people there. But first, where are the Solomon Islands? The Solomon Islands actually consist of about 1,000 islands, and it is a sovereign state in Oceania east of Papua New Guinea. These islands are thought to have been populated by the Melanesian people for a long period of time. In fact, in 1568, the Spanish explorer Alvaro de Mendaña found the islands and named them Islas Salomon, which translates to the Solomon Islands in English. During World War II, America and Japan had a severe fight over the Solomon Islands. Most famous of them all was the Battle of Guadalcanal. The capital of the Solomon Islands, Honiara, is located on the island of Guadalcanal, which is the title that most Americans are aware of. However, the intense war between the Americans and the Japanese wasn't the only conflict at the time. It is said that the Japanese soldiers had encountered a giant. Marius Boy-Rayon was the research director of the Solomon Anthropological Expedition Trust Board Incorporated and one of the people involved in the investigation on the islands regarding the giants. Boy-Rayon lived and worked in the Solomon Islands as a helicopter pilot and engineer and ended up marrying a Solomon native woman. In 2010, Boy-Rayon published the book Solomon Islands Mysteries. The book had covered stories from the domestic people, which included his wife. He claimed that there were giants living on the islands and that one of them was over 10 feet tall. Other stories say that some giants were even up to 15 feet tall. The Guadalcanal giants, as he referred to them, are said to have long black, brown or red hair, double eyebrows, red eyeballs, flat noses, and wide mouths. The Solomon Islander are lacking the understanding that their giant race would be a big scientific discovery to the rest of the world. Whether by design or not, it is appropriate that the Solomon Islands' national logo is "the place that time forgot," said Boy-Rayon. Boy-Rayon also gathered many eyewitness accounts of the giants of the Solomon Islands. According to him, they are over 15-foot tall creatures that leave footprints around the construction sites of the Solomon Islands. Many local reports claim that the giants live inside the jungle mountain ranges of Guadalcanal and that they have large cave systems which span over the entire island. A fact that Europeans discovered centuries ago is that Guadalcanal is rich with gold. Over 40 years ago, there were a lot of gold mining companies that were interested in working in the Solomon Islands, and they had started negotiating with the landowners in order to capitalize on this gold. After years of negotiation, Ross Mining had finally landed a deal which promised a 3% cut to the indigenous deal. In 1998, at the Gold Ridge, which is located central North Guadalcanal, the company started bringing in their massive mining bulldozers and started clearing the mine area. However, the Gold Ridge mine borders the Giants' territory, and it seems that the Giants are very protective of their area. It is said that one day one of these huge bulldozers broke down with one of the pins on the blade attachment, so they weren't able to continue work that day. So they had decided to drop the blade there and take the bulldozer back to the workshop to repair it overnight so that they could continue working the next day. However, when they came back the next morning, the massive blade had disappeared. This brought confusion to the team as they could not understand how could an object which weighs more than 10 tons just disappear like that. They decided to start looking around the area and noticed that giant footprints which were around 3 feet were close to where the blade had been left. It is said that then, around 100 meters away on a small hill, one of the workers had spotted the blade. From further investigation, they concluded that the giants had not carried it there, but had thrown it, or that it had got there another way. It is estimated that the area has around 20 billion Australian dollars of gold still remaining. Another story revolves around an incident that happened on the Weather Coast, which is on the south coast of Guadalcanal, in 2000 during their ethnic conflict. It is said that the giants do not like fire, possibly because of their long hair. So if one is to travel through the giants' territory, which is not advisable or even allowed in most cases, they should take something which can be used to spray fire and fight the giants off. The story claims that 5 Tanqueray men had went hunting pig with their bow and arrows and ended up losing track of time. It was getting late and it started raining, so the men had decided to build a hut to camp the night there. At night, as they were sitting around a fire within the hut, a huge hand and arm came through the hut's wall. The 5 men started screaming and using sticks from the fire to beat the giant hand away. Apparently horrified, they ran straight through the back wall of the hut and into the darkness of the bush. When they found each other the next morning down on the coast, they had been spread out over several kilometers. There are a lot more stories about the giants of the Solomon Islands, and their culture is deeply embedded with accounts of the giants. For example, the Japanese War Memorial on the Solomon Islands, which is located at Mount Austin of Honiara, is truly something else. Most war memorials usually display pictures of soldiers, guns, and the like. However, the Japanese War Memorial, which is around 30 by 10 meters, has nothing like that. Instead, on the western end, there are 4 large blank vertical marble walls that should have writing on them, and to the north, there is a row of cherry blossoms that look like they are having difficulty surviving in the tropical environment. The only writing on the memorial to be found is about the famous Japanese sculptor, and at the base of the bronze statue is a half-human man with scales who is holding a ray gun-looking thing attached to the end of his long tail. So one has to wonder, what does this have to do with the Japanese and American conflict at all? In addition, there are countless accounts of these giants on the Solomon Islands, and new ones seem to be popping up every day. What do you think about the giants of the Solomon Islands? Is it fact or fiction?